So this is Brett Fear interviewing Bree Tolley in the Norwick Center for Digital Solutions in the Fondren Library on, what's the date today?
Today's 13th.
April 13th, 2022 on SMU's campus. How are you doing today, Bree?
I am doing okay.
Okay.
Yes.
Wonderful. Well, I hope we make it a great day through the interview. Awesome. So I guess to get started, let's just establish your connection to SMU. When did you come here, and when are you expecting to graduate, and what are you studying?
Yes, I am a former athlete. I came here on a full basketball scholarship from Montverde Academy, Florida, and I got a full scholarship here, yeah. My first 2 years, I was on the team. Didn't really do anything outside of team stuff. But it was around 2019 December where I tore my ACL. And also the pandemic happened, so I was sent home, and I used that time to just really truly focus on myself and found my passions outside of the sport. And from there, came back, tried to get back to the groove of basketball, but that year was also the year we forfeited the season because we didn't want to play for our coach anymore. So junior year was when I stopped playing basketball, stopped competing in basketball, and kind of got more involved in school involvement.
Right. Awesome. And so at SMU, what are you studying?
I study political science and human rights,
Okay.
both BAs.
And you're graduating?
In May.
In May.
Yeah.
May 2022. Awesome. All right. So great. We'll just kind of walk it back now. And so tell me, when were you born and where were you born?
I was born in 1999. I was born in Midland, Michigan. It's where my daddy went to college at, but both my parents are from Florida. But I was raised in Bartow, Florida. Yeah.
Right. All right. And so do you have any siblings?
I have 3 younger siblings. I'm the oldest of 4. I have 1 younger sister. I have one eldest brother, and I have a baby brother, but I'm the oldest of all 4. It's 2 girls and then 2 boys.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. And can you tell me a little bit about your parents and maybe a little bit more about your siblings as well?
Yeah. So we're pretty much an athlete family. My dad was a star football player and basketball player. He ended up going to college for football, like I said, in Michigan. My mom was sort of an athlete, but sort of not. She ended up getting pregnant with both me and my sister, so that kind of got taken away from her. But it took about 7 years to get her bachelor's degree, but she got it. You know, she's a strong woman. She said she was not going to let 2 kids stop her. But yeah, we got involved around sports at a really young age. I've been playing sports since I was 5. My first sport was actually cheerleading. I didn't have any rhythm or could do anything, so I was just the spotter. But my sister also plays basketball. We're going to the same school after graduation. I'm going to get my grad degree, and I'm going to grad school to get a master's in just studies. And my sister, she's going from JUCO in Florida to this school, Delaware State University, to get her undergraduate degree in public health. But yeah, we played all the sports growing up, and then same thing with my brother. He's at the same school my daddy went to college for, Northwood University, for football. And I have a baby brother. He's 10 years younger than me. We're still trying to figure out what his niche is going to be, but it seems like he's probably not going to be an athlete. Mm-hmm. He seems more like a video gamer. So I think that's what he's going to end up doing. Yeah.
Awesome. And so, kind of growing up, can you tell me kind of what a normal day would look like for you when you were younger?
Yeah, so it would just be, I went to a private boarding school in high school too, so I don't know where I want to start it, but I can start from middle school. But it was just parents, we wake up, take me to school, or get on the bus. Many times where I missed the bus. And then after school, come back, eat, and then get ready for practice, and then go to practice, and then back home. And then it was around 8th grade where it was 4 a.m., I get up and work out, then go to school, then come back and eat, and then go to practice. I really didn't do much outside of sports. Mm-hmm. But I went to a boarding school during my high school. It was around 2 hours away from where I lived. And again, I got a scholarship to play basketball there. And that day, wake up, get ready for school, go eat breakfast, go to school, and then after school, go straight to basketball practice. Or some days I had AU practice where I had to go from the place my school to the practice, which was like an hour away. But yeah, it was always just basketball. Anytime I went to a new state, it was most likely because of basketball. Basketball was my life growing up.
Well, it kind of leads perfectly into one of the questions that I wanted to ask you is, what got you into playing basketball? Like, what did it mean to you as a kid, and I guess also what does it mean to you now?
Yeah, so I think I got into sports because my dad was an athlete, so of course, like I just had to. I don't remember what got me into it, but before high school was just something that I used to just love doing. I was just good at every sport that I played. I did soccer, track, softball, volleyball, and I was just good at everything that I put my hands on. I was just a really good athlete. But I got serious with basketball in my high school year because I knew that was an easy ticket to get a scholarship. Well, it's not easy. I'm not going to say that. But it was one of the only sports that I could get a full scholarship with. Because all the other sports, I think soccer is another sport where you can get either full or none. But all the other scholarships, they don't give you full. Like, you have to, unless you're like a star athlete, maybe. But yeah. So I got serious with basketball because I knew it was my ticket into getting a full scholarship to basketball. And it used to mean so much to me. I remember I was like, I want to be an Olympian. I want to go to like the best school. I want to be like the leading scorer. Because even through my high school years, I was a 4-time MVP. I was the player of the year my senior year. I led my team in scoring and rebounding each year. And then I broke my school record for track, but we're not going to talk about that. But yeah, it meant a lot to me. I saw myself going to the pros. I saw myself doing a lot with it. And I really loved it. But when I got to college, that love just kind of dwelled away. Just because of things that were happening between my coach, my teammates. And then I realized I just don't love it like I thought I did. What it means to me now is just that I'm glad I was able to get the opportunity. Without basketball, I would not be at an institution like SMU. I don't even know if I would be in college. Like, my parents just could not afford school, especially with me and 3 other siblings. Like, we needed these scholarships. So basketball is like, it's a blessing. It was able to, obtain me the opportunity to play and get a scholarship to a great institution. But it did what it needed to do for me. It served its purpose. And now it's serving its purpose again, allowing me to go to another institution on a full basketball scholarship to allow me to get my master's. But I'm a lot more wiser than I was my freshman and sophomore year and able to speak up for myself and advocate for myself. And now when I go to the school, I don't have to worry about, having to choose between, my passion of, organizing and advocacy and basketball. My coaches know me well enough to know, like, as long as I'm doing whatever I need to do on the court, do whatever you want to do off the court. And so I'm happy to end my basketball career on a good note because it just did not end well here at university. So I'm happy. Basketball has served its purpose, giving me the opportunity to be at places that I would not be able to do without it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah.
That was great.
Thanks.
And so, so before we move fully into to your time at SMU, what was your friend group like growing up through middle school and high school? Yeah,
my friend group was I've always been the awkward one. I've always just been the odd one. I always had trouble with friendships, actually, growing up. I've always had this imposter syndrome, actually. I was too black for the white folks, too white for the black folks. And I've always just struggled with, fitting in. I tried to sometimes be a person that I was not just to fit in. And then it didn't help that I was always the tallest. So I was just always just very noticeable. And I've always just been a good kid. I tried not to get involved in anything that could get me in trouble. But my friends growing up, I never really had friends growing up, actually. It was just more so acquaintances. There's nobody I could really go to and say, they're my besties. And I did have some besties here and there, but it's just nothing that ever lasted. It was always just be me, myself, and groups that I just happened to be a part of. Nothing like, this is my group. But it was around like high school where I started to kind of gain that. I never really had friendships a part of a basketball team. My friends, I've always been that teammate. I've always had friends outside of the team. And, you know, I went to an international boarding school. I forgot to add that too. But it was a culture shock for me. And I was literally my first year in the dorm. I was the only black person and the only American. But the friendships that I gained there didn't last after college. But I do have one best friend who's Asian. He's from Singapore that we've just stayed in contact with. We get nice presents for each other for all our birthdays. Like I just got him a really expensive blender, and he got me this really expensive air fryer. He's been to all my birthdays and everything, and so I never really had friends, but it wasn't until college where I'm like, I'm worthy of a regular night's friendship. And now in college, I can say that I've actually gained and have genuine friendships. And it wasn't until like I left the basketball team and really joined the queer community here at SMU where I really found these friendships. I didn't know, I've been neurodivergent my whole life, but I didn't know until I was diagnosed with ADHD this past year. And I think that was really one of the problems that I had with it, because there was nothing, everybody knew something was wrong with me, but nobody could put a name to it. And I think that's also what, like, you know, caused friction between the friendships that I had, because it was just really hard to relate and really understand me. Mm-hmm. But now all my friends that I do have, they're all neurodivergent too. So it's like, we understand each other, and we're able to get personal, and it's just, yeah. The friendships that I have, they mean so much to me and really helped, you know, shape me into the person that I'm, you know, becoming today. But our friendships that I have in college have been the best friendships that I've ever had. Yeah.
That's awesome. And so, growing up, how would you describe the acceptance of the LGBTQ community in your household, at school, and just kind of in your community?
Great question. I grew up with internalized homophobia. I knew what gay was. Like I knew what there were some people that had like queer relationships, but my family, it was just something that we never talked about. And I know I had instances when I was younger where I'm like when I used to play with baby dolls, I used to always just have the woman and woman together. And there would be some things where I would watch, and I'm like, oh, it's a queer relationship. And inside me, you know, I felt something, but I don't know if other people felt it, but I was like, oh, just to the outside, oh, that's nasty. They shouldn't be doing that. But inside, I'm like, that's actually kind of hot. And it was around like my 8th grade year where I realized that I was in a woman. My teammates, I had a couple of queer teammates, but I had a few masculine teammates that everybody just knew, but they didn't outwardly say it later because I don't know if they were ready for that type of attention. You know, at least in the basketball scene, it's never been condoned because it's just, I mean, you're most likely going to have a queer teammate on your basketball team. Like that's just, it's really, really likely. But it was around my 8th grade year where I started to grow these feelings for one of my teammates, and I didn't know where it was coming from at all. Yeah, my parents, they weren't really the most accepting of it, you know, in my younger years. And when it came to my Montverde Academy, I really don't know what it was. Because it seems now like they're very accepting of it. But I had a teammate that was also I had a girlfriend. I mean, were we really dating? I don't know, but she was a teammate. And we ended up getting in big trouble from the school, and because of our relationship. And I got in trouble with my parents. So I kind of stopped after that. I tried to just date guys just to make people happy, but I was never really happy. I really tried to put in this facade, like trying to make myself good enough for a man, when in reality, I was never just meant for a man. And the things that I used to do, I look back at myself and I'm like, are you serious? Like you were really playing into that patriarchy. Now you know you weren't happy, Bree. But I did it. I used to be like, yes, wife me up because I'm a good cook. Wife me up because I'm a virgin. Wife me up because all this stuff. But I was like, Brie, doesn't matter. Why were you doing that? But yes, but it was my junior year where I decided to date a woman again. And again, family was not really happy about it, and her family wasn't either. But she's also a white woman. And I remember when we talked to her family about it, I don't know if her parents were more mad about the fact that we were queer or the fact that she was dating a black girl. I will still never know to this day. But yeah, after that scenario, I was like, I don't know. I was like, but at that time too, I was like, I don't see myself marrying a woman. I was still like, yeah, I like women, but I don't know if I don't know if I can see myself marrying a woman. But again, I went back to the guy scene. Freshman year, same thing, guy scene, and I realized that I just was not happy. I was putting myself more in depression mode because of some of the things that I was doing because of what I cared about what other people thought of me. And even amongst my basketball team, were they accepting of it? No, I don't, like my coach, I don't even think that he recruited like queer folks sometimes. I don't know. But like, yeah, my team, they were okay with it. It's like, you're queer, but that's cool. Like, just don't put that on me. Like, they're accepting of it because, they're your teammate, but like behind the scenes, like, it's probably like, no, my children can't be queer, or something like that. It's just like, they're accepting of it because they have to, not be accepting of it because they want to. Right. But it was around like my junior. It was June 2020, the last day of Pride Month, where I officially came out, and I put it out everywhere. And I came out as bisexual only because, like, I swear I still had this 2% chance of being with a man. When in reality, no, I wasn't. But I just was not ready to accept the fact that I was lesbian. I still had that internalized lesbophobia. And, but I came out, I did it, and, it was like the best time. That's also when I started to get my friends and be in the human rights program. But again, my parents weren't the best with it, but, now they are. But I remember a good instance where what really got me into like the queer advocacy is, it was the rise of the BLM movement, and basketball athletics had made a patch where they had a white hand. My teammates did not want that white hand, obviously, and so they just wanted the black hand. But I said, we have 3 queer folks in the team, and there's a lot of black queer folks that are attacked and targeted, and in order to affirm them and be there for them, why wouldn't we have a pride hand? And they're like, no. And I was like, why? They was like, why are you trying to bring that into our movement as if they're not black queer folks? And I was like, so you only accept one half of me, right? And so that's really what got me into what I do now with Pride Project and Pride Visibility Day, and being queer senator. But it was that instance where I realized, wow, I'm really black and I'm gay. But again, like, I've been able to do a lot with the queer community and open doors for myself that now my parents have realized, like, wow, like, they finally accepted the fact, like, I'm gay. Like, they just have a gay daughter. But now it's the things like my mom reposting, like, things that I've done with Pride stuff, or my mom, telling me congrats, or my mom wanting to be there for one of my queer events. Like, that matters. Like, she would not, 2 years ago, she would not have done that. So, yeah, it's more of the story, just be you. Eventually they will start being accepting of it. But I know that's not the case for everybody. So let me not say that. But at least for me, more of the story.
It's a wonderful story. Thank you for sharing that. And so you kind of touched on it at a couple points now, and so I want to ask you about it. But, if you can speak a little more to your experiences and, how people have treated you in the past, how it makes you feel of being both black and queer. And so can you talk a little bit more about that? Because earlier you mentioned at school you thought of yourself as too black or too white, or other people thought of you that way. And so can you speak a little bit more about this kind of 2 parts of your identity?
Yeah. I've never really could put like a name to it until like now. But I've always struggled with it. You know, being Black, being gay, being someone that's not religious, being a woman, being a Black woman at that. It's always just a navigating space on what hat I want to wear in what space. And it was never really a problem. Like, but I didn't start to making it aware until I got to college, especially at, you know, the institution that we're at. Also, I have to put the fact that, you know, another hat that I also had to wear was, like, me being low income at a very prestigious high school, but also, again, at PWI. I mean, at SMU. But, yeah, when I was on the team, like, it was just a weird, really weird. It's not like they hated me for being queer, but I remember just talking about the things of being queer. They would always ask me, like, how do you do that? Why do you do that? What is this? What is that? And I'm like, of course, I was just, like, cordial with it and, like, try to educate them about it. But I was like, that's really awkward. Like, some of y'all ask really pervasive questions. I don't know if you know that, because what if I did the same thing to you? Would you like that? And then even with class, like, everything you see is very either too white or a man and a woman, you know? And I didn't have that growing up. And if I could have some of the things that I'm able to get into now as a kid, my life would have been so much easier when it came to, you know, really truly understanding my identity. But nobody understands that. Like, everybody sees everything from a very white, very narrow, very straight lens without, you know, expanding the fact of the possibilities of what you did if you just made it more inclusive. Like, and so I'm always, like, having to make sure, like, sometimes it's like, am I doing too much? Am I being too queer? And I'm like, so what? I didn't get to do this when I was younger, so I'm gonna do it now. But but I've been able to join a friend group where I'm able to wear all hats at all times and really bring up all the intersections about my identity, and also call out, you know, when people are bringing all the phobias into a space, or like any of the phobias into a space. But I don't know, it's just like, it's hard navigating the many identities that I have in any space that I have. I mean, that I bring myself into, and I always just have to be, you know, cautious of it. I just been fortunate enough to at least be in spaces where I can. But I remember it was like my internship this past summer that I did. We're doing research on McKinney, and it was like we're doing research on, like, Black, you know, folks in McKinney. But I was, like, always afraid to bring up the fact, like, my boss would be talking about love and who you're dating and stuff with, like, amongst the group, but I just would not say anything because I'm like, I don't know if I'm ready to tell this lady, like, I'm lesbian. Like, it's just, because she was also really religious. So I was like, I don't know if I'm ready to do that because I don't want to make it seem like I don't want to make her uncomfortable. But I don't know. It's just, sometimes it's just weird. Like, it's like, when do you bring it up? When do you not? Because you don't want to do too much, and it's like, is it really necessary to bring it up? But I don't know. I never really noticed the hats until being in Senate this past year, where I'm really navigating all these identities.
Mm-hmm. Right. So, moving from high school to SMU, what was SMU's reputation before you got here? How did you and your family view SMU?
I just view SMU like Texas, like a bunch of steak, cowboy boots. I didn't know how rich it was until I attended here. But I was like, I'm used to that because I went to another private school during my high school years, so it was really nothing to me. But SMU really, it was expectations of what I thought it was going to be. Mm-hmm. I was like, I would say the only difference from high school was that, you know, it was a little bit more diversity, but it's like in a class, literally me, Black woman, and a bunch of white kids. And then I never really, being an athlete never really bothered me. But when people be like, oh, people don't know me, right? But they assume I'm already an athlete before I'm able to even get my name out the door, or before I'm even introduce myself. And it's like, yeah, I know I'm an athlete, but it's like, I don't want to be perceived as an athlete. So it's like, hey, oh, you play basketball? And I'm like, yeah. But it's like, it is what it is, but yeah.
Yeah. And so, how welcoming was the school when you arrived?
I was on a private island with a basketball team, so I never really did anything with the wider school community. I would say there's a lot of problems within just athletics itself, but I'm not going to talk about that. But it was okay. Yeah. Sorry, my phone.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, my phone's been buzzing in my pocket. I'm just gonna turn on the side. Oh, oops. Sorry. Just don't want the microphone to pick up the vibrations. Should have done that before we started. So did you live on campus? Do you have any roommates?
Yeah, I lived on campus all 4 years. Yeah, and my teammates have been, my roommates, first 3 years were my teammates. And then this year I have regular school girls, yeah.
And so, other than basketball, were you involved in any of your clubs while you were at SMU?
It's so crazy. People ask me this question because it's been so much. But yes, I've been president of the Feminist Equality Movement. I was founder and president of Black Student Athlete Committee. I'm a part of Sigma Lambda Gamma National Sorority. I am the Cultural Awareness Chair, VP of Finance, and I do a lot of the programming. Thank you so much. So I'm so sorry if I forget any. I'm part of the Human Rights Program. I've been I've also been a part of a non-voting member of SAC. Had a few internships. I worked on campus. I am the founder of the Pride Project. Well, founder and executive producer of Pride Project, the creator of Pride Visibility Day. I am queer senator. I served on the Black Unity Forum. I served on the Women's Commission Board. Yeah, I think I got open maybe. I don't know.
Sounds like there's less things that you didn't do.
Yeah, what haven't I done? Yeah.
That's awesome, though. But kind of a follow-up question, were there any clubs or groups that you felt like you couldn't join, that you felt like were off limits to you?
No. There probably are. Like, I'm not going to sit there and join some Republican organization or sit there and join some... Yeah, I know what not to join, but I never felt like I can't join. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I can't say that. I remember my sophomore year, when I just started to get involved, I was like, I don't have anything in my resume, anything to speak to. So I was like, I don't know if I can join. But now that I got myself more involved, now I feel very confident in joining. Yeah.
Awesome. And so to kind of hone in on your athletic experience, can you talk about your experiences as an out athlete and what sort of challenges have you faced in athletics because of your identity?
Like I said, I haven't really. I've only been out not that long, and I came out around the time that we were just ending basketball. So I really can't speak to have I really faced any challenges. But like I said, most of it just came from my team. Like I'm not saying that my teammates were bad with it, but it's just some things I just wish they were better with when it came to the supporting. Because there's a difference between being an ally and supporter rather than just being accepting. Like it's just two different things, and it's the small things that matter. But as far as athletics, no. They did do an interview with me. They were doing some diversity series where they interviewed me about being a queer athlete. And I also have an article out there with Out Sports when I first came out that they allowed me to do. But no, I've never really faced problems being queer. Have there been like instances where people try to question my sexuality? Yes, but that's typical just being a queer femme lesbian. So, yeah.
And so, can you kind of walk me through what a typical day would look like for you here at SMU?
Now or 2 years ago?
Let's do 2 years ago.
So yeah, basketball. It would be I wake up in the morning, 4 a.m. and then I have class at 8 a.m. I used to be in there sleep. And then I'll have lunch. Well, of course I eat breakfast, but then yeah, I would go to class, and then eat lunch again, and then have practice between 4 and 6, and then after 6 I would have study hall, or if I didn't have study hall, it was most likely because I had a night class. Yeah.
So pretty busy.
Yeah.
And so, let me see. Can you tell me a little bit more about the Black Student Athlete Committee? So
Yeah.
what kind of prompted you to be a part of this organization, and talk a little bit more about your experience as a Black student athlete at SMU?
Yeah, so Black Student Athlete Committee came after the George Floyd incident and the rise of the BLM movement. Like I said, athletics is an institution of itself, a very problematic institution, especially for athletes of color, especially Black athletes. And it's kind of hard to speak to because it's like you don't want to be ungrateful for the fact that they're giving you a scholarship, to be at an institution. But it's like there are some problems that need to be addressed, like from like a nationwide thing, and some things here at SMU. But I'm not going to speak to that. But what prompted me to do the Black Student Athlete Committee because I wanted a space to where Black student athletes come together, speak about their concerns and actually, hold the athletics accountable. Because a lot of athletes, they have their problems, but they always just were afraid to speak up to it because they don't want to get their scholarship, they're just afraid of getting your scholarship taken away. Mm-hmm. But everything's a business, money talks. And so I started the Black Student Athlete Committee on bringing cultural awareness within student athletes. We wanted more volunteer opportunities outside of Highland Park because why do these kids need volunteers when there's kids in like Southeast Dallas that need it most? We wanted the athletic department to support students outside of the majors that they tried to prompt us to. It's like they want us to take these easy majors because they want us to stay eligible and make our life easier to play sports. But why aren't you focusing more on academics? Because not all of us are going to end up going pro, and you're only setting us up for failure if you're not supporting us outside of the court. But we wanted more professional development opportunities and things like that. We wanted a space for athletes. And so out of that, what we did was create a list of 8 demands, and you can also find that on our internet. And many of them speak to the things I just said, but we also want a Black professional, a healthcare professional. We wanted more, Black folks within the athletic department. But yeah, we needed a space for us, by us, and to really hold the athletic department accountable because a lot of it is just like, we bring up concerns and then we graduate and then they go away and then things start. It's like a cycle. It starts back up and then somebody tries to do something 4 years later and then they graduate. It's like we wanted something to, to stop that cycle. And so that's kind of where like the demands came from. But what we also noticed is that Black athletes are on a different island than regular Black students. And we wanted something to kind of bridge that together. And I also wanted something to get athletes outside of athletics and get them involved with the wider community. And so that's kind of how that came up. We had a march that had over like 200 people at it. The president spoke. We had like all the news channels. And then we were meeting each month trying to get programming together. But in the end, it really didn't turn out the way I wanted it to be. We started off really strong because like the hype was there. But once the hype started to go away, the motivation started to go away. And it's during a time where, there isn't no hype, where you have to, stay stronger, stay together because, yeah. And so now the group is kind of dwelling away, and I'm really sad about it because I also had to lead as president, so I also couldn't be president anymore because I wasn't an athlete. But I think it did good for what it needed to do during that time for athletes. Mm-hmm. I remember the thing that resonated with me was when we had that really bad snowstorm the first time. And I was there, I was volunteering at a homeless shelter. And I said that we needed help. And 40 athletes showed up the next day helping at that homeless shelter in the snow and everything. And so, I mean, it's there, but there needs to be that person keeping that there. But there now, there's not, and it's upsetting because I already know what's going to happen a few years down the road. Something else is going to happen, but there's not going to be that org to kind of help facilitate that or prevent that from happening because a lot of things are reactionary instead of being precautionary. And you can't really trust folks. Like, they'll sit up there and say, support you and be like, yeah, thank you for speaking up. But that's just the amount of they will give you because they're not going to be intentional about it unless you actually keep, pushing for that. But once they see that the push is not there, then it's like, now I can do whatever I want to do. So it's upsetting, but like I said, it did what it needed to do, during that time.
Yeah. And so with that, what do you think needs to change at SMU in order to make sure that doesn't happen? What does the university need to do in order to support organizations like the Black Student Athlete Committee to make sure those causes don't kind of, lose momentum?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that's a very complicated question. I know things that like many athletes, even when we created the group, wasn't even aware that we were a group. And it would be nice to just, to have, if the athletic department kind of promoted the group to help us, keep athletes coming in and helping apply and actually pushing athletes to, do things like this. But it's like, you're here to play basketball, and coaches got to make sure that they win. And so kind of just keep them within the athletic realm. But it would just be nice if athletics push athletes to do more of this type of work instead of just keeping them in the books in basketball. But they don't. And so it's like a lot on the students to kind of, keep that going, but you can only do so much as a student. So you're a full-time student, and not only that, a full-time athlete trying to do this stuff outside of athletics. And unless you have that extra support, it's really hard to get students there. And it's really just hard to get student athletes inspired, period. It's just, I feel like it's just very, very complicated to answer, and I wish I had the answer, but I don't. But sometimes it just comes down to support and how you're promoting it. And if we just had more of that support from the athletic department, I'm pretty sure that this group would probably still be a thing today.
And so, can you talk to me a little bit more about the Black Lives Matter demonstrations that you organized and were a part of? When did they take place, and how were they received by the student body, faculty, and staff at SMU? So
we organized the BLM movement the first week of school in my junior year. It happened literally the night before. It was literally the night before where we organized it. A lot of there were 15 of us getting it together. Somebody calling the police department, somebody getting the ICE, somebody getting the megaphone, somebody getting the posters so people can make posters. It was cute. And then somebody making the graphics to put it on Instagram. And that's the night that we actually made our Black Student Athlete account on Instagram. And so we made the poster, put it on Instagram, and then we had over 300 shares. But yeah, we needed that, especially during that time. And it was like a good thing to see from athletes putting this together. You rarely see this from us, but it was just like, wow, look at us. And yeah, it was, like I said, everything was last minute, but we were able to get around 200 people there. And we walked around. We started from Dallas Hall and walked down the boulevard to Lloyd. And then we made the U-turn at Lloyd to go back up towards Hughes Trigg, and then from Hughes Trigg back to Dallas Lawn. But before that, we had speeches. We had I spoke for a little bit. We had Ash, who was the president of SAC, speak for a little bit. The president spoke for a little bit, and then we had Rasan speak for a little bit, and then we had somebody that had the megaphone doing the chants and everything. But it was a great time, and it was great to see that from athletes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So and then. Did you have any pushback or challenges that you faced during this?
No, I mean, the pushback came after afterwards, people tried to make the excuse of it's COVID. Why is the university allowing that? But I think it was just like, why are you doing that? I think it had nothing to do with COVID. Because the same guy that was saying that was the same guy that was like out partying each night. So are you really mad because of COVID? Or are you just mad because we did a BLM protest? But yeah, there was really no pushback getting it done. I don't think that nobody was going to say, especially the athletic department was not going to say no to athletes. I like to say athletes have a lot of freeway because the way in which we were able to get police officers out there, like if another group did that, I doubt that they would have gotten the support like we did that day. Yeah.
Yeah, and so can you talk a little bit more about your collaboration with the police department in organizing this?
That wasn't me.
Okay.
Yeah. Not really my niche. But yeah, we got other people to do that.
Awesome. And so let me go back. So I got like a million papers here. And so, so when you got here, how well did you feel like the LGBTQ community was represented?
Not that well. Again, yeah, not that well, actually, at all. I really didn't see anything from, like, especially during Pride Month, really nothing from nowhere from SMU, even from the athletic department. And there was nothing. I swear I thought I was the only queer person in athletics, but actually in reality I was not. But there was really nothing. Like I said, it was my junior year where I started to gain friendships, amongst the queer community, but it still was just like people that I know that knew friends. It was nothing like a communal space, communal thing, And so I was like, yeah, I'm going to take the initiative and get that together. But yeah, it was really nothing in my 3 years that I could point to that, wow, queer people were like truly supported here. I mean, of course they have like programs and resources for LGBT plus students, but it's nothing like hourly, like, yes, we love our LGBTQ plus students. Yeah. There was nothing from the queer community that was doing anything amongst the queer community either.
Yeah. And so you've told me about students' interactions with you as, a person in part of the LGBTQ community. What about faculty? Was there support? Did you face any challenges from faculty at SMU?
I love Dr. Gardner. I love her. And she's a woman, the LGBT Center Director, and I love Jamisha. She just came here this year. Have I faced any backlash from faculty? No, not really. Not really, yeah. Yeah, I haven't. Yeah, I haven't.
Okay. And so, were there any specific support or resources that really helped you obtain your degree and do well at SMU to help you succeed?
The ALEC Center is great. Helped me a bunch with my papers. Same thing with the Heggie Center. Engaged Learning, helped, pay for the Pride Project. Started with $6,000, but now Pride Visibility Day, we've been able to raise $50,000, and so now that's helping with putting the event together. But and there were people within athletics in the academic place that also helped me with my academics. But yeah, SMU has a lot of resources and opportunities that could really help. That really helps with making sure that you cross the line, but also help with anything that you decide to pursue. There's so many resources that you can get into that can help put your dream into action. Yeah.
Awesome. So, kind of brings me to Pride Visibility Day. So, could you tell me a little bit more about this event and sort of what's the goal and the purpose of the event, and have you faced any sort of challenges or barriers when organizing it, and what sort of feedback have you received from the student body, faculty, and staff?
So
Pride Visibility Day started from, when I first got in the Senate, I did a survey that I pushed out because I'm one of the 2 seats that don't have official constituents because SMU doesn't track that information. And also being queer is just invisible in a minority. You just don't know who's queer. And so what I did I wore a pride shirt, and I was just going to random people, "Hi, my name is Brittali. My pronouns are she, her. What are yours?" And I know if somebody said their pronouns, I knew they were most likely queer. And then I'll be like, "Are you queer?" And they'd be like, "Yes." I'm like, "Okay, then you should do this survey, or you should let me get your name." And so, I was pushing out the survey all on my Instagram, really putting myself out there so people would know who I am. And I was able to get 56 people to fill it out. And what came about that is that many queer students feel like they were not welcome or belonged. There was a lack of visibility, lack of representation, lack of belonging, like I said, and a very rigid adherence to the gender binary and practices, norms, and policies. And so I was like, I don't think that queer students are really wanting policy right now. I think what they're really wanting is community. And so that's kind of where the Pride Visibility Day came out. I was like, I don't think that SMU has ever done a large-scale Pride event, nor have I ever think that they've done a Pride event for the public, here at the university. And I was like, yeah, y'all have said it, y'all don't, and there were a lot of queer students have also said that, SMU celebrates me for all the things other than being queer. And so I was like, you know what? Let's figure out something to where we can bring queer excellence. Oh, sorry.
No,
okay.
No, I was just checking the time.
But I was like, let's do something to where we could do queer excellence and really put visibility out there to really bring, not just queer students together, but everybody together to really raise an awareness, to boost excellence, to educate, and to also just have fun. I was kind of going, for more like a festival. And so at the time I was really busy with Pride Project. I was like, there's no way I can do Pride Project and Pride Visibility Day. And so I recruited 2 folks, Leanna Frost and Jonathan Cox, to kind of lead the event. Leanna Frost is the event director, and she's been amazing. She's way more organized than I could ever be. And so, she took it. She saw the vision. She took it, and now it's flourishing. And we were able to just fundraise so much. We have this Selmer, who is a queer Christian artist, non-binary, who is charting the religious Christian charts with their non-binary songs. So we're like, SMU was just voted 11th in the country. 11th in the state for the best religious schools of LGBT plus. We all think that the bar is very low, but we're like, let's challenge that by bringing them here. But the event is going to be big. It's going to go from Dallas Hall all the way to the flagpole. And we have 2 awards that we're giving out that's going to award a faculty and a student with $500. And there's a lot more to the event, but it's going to be really, really nice. And I'm really, really excited because, like I said, this has never happened. And not only that's happening, but it's the fact that it's 12 queer students putting this together and organizing. It's a beautiful sight, And I'm happy for them. The fact, it's humbling for me to know that I inspired people to want to even do this and keep this going even after I graduate. But it's amazing. I'm happy to see where it ends up being. Our goal is to get around 700 people. Because not only that are we getting SMU students, we're making this like a broader Dallas thing. So we're inviting high school students. We're also getting in contact with local queer orgs. But I don't know if you know the story of Jamie Shim, but Jamie Shim was one of the first out students and a presidential scholar here at the university, but he ended up taking his life because what we have now and what we're doing today, he didn't have that, And I can only imagine if something like this was there during his time, how that would have changed his outlook of himself as a trans student and just at a trans student at SMU, And so it's changing, the culture, you know, changing the outlook of what it means to be queer at SMU. And like I said, this is all done within 7 months, and I can only imagine what this is going to be in another year or two, you know. And I'm happy. You know, there's a lot of work being done. Of course, there's still things that we could, you know, improve on, but it's getting done, and we're being intentional about it. And so I'm happy.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. It's really great. Thank you. So, kind of a few more questions I want to ask you before we wrap up. But are you wanting to? You said you were going on to get your master's after
Yeah.
SMU. Where are you going, and where are you going to be studying?
I'm going to Delaware State University. I'm playing basketball. I'm getting my master's in justice studies, and I'm actually really, really excited. The human rights program is great. It's okay, actually. I love Dr. Clyde. I love Dr. Jordan. I love Hope. But I just feel like the human rights program itself is too colonial based sometimes, and sometimes doesn't take into account the intersectional part of the identities that people hold within the human rights realm. And so I'm just really excited to be going to an institution that's an HBCU, but not only that, expending like my human rights degree in justice studies with Black professors and learning this from Black professors, because I really need that. I don't know what I want to do with it yet. After my experiences of what I experienced in Senate this past year, and Senate and then Pride Project, I hope to like really combine that and really put that into fruition of like what I want to like actually like hone in on my justice studies degree, because I'm thinking about doing a PhD. I don't know, but I think I have a lot to speak to and a lot of experiences to speak to now as a senior, especially after everything I experienced this year. I just need to figure out and pinpoint where I want to take it. But I'm happy to be expanding on my experiences in my education.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
And so, do you have any regrets?
Ooh, regrets.
Or anything you would have done differently?
No. I feel like everything happened for a reason. Everything challenged me the way it was supposed to. And I'm happy it all did, even from the basketball team, you know, even to now, what happened in Senate and what happened with everything is giving me an outlook of what, because SMU can be a bubble. Like, sometimes it could be a bubble where, like, what happens here is like you're, like, in a bubble from, like, the rest of the world. But I'm getting glimpses of what I'm going into, and I can't regret it, you know? It's all shaped me into the person that I'm growing into. Yeah, I wouldn't say that I have any regrets. I'm happy. It was maybe hard at the time where I'm like, no, but growing and looking back at it, I'm glad that it happened. You know, I'm maturing, and it is what it is. So, I can't necessarily say I have any regrets. Yeah.
So, and what is your most memorable experience being at SMU?
My most memorable experience being at SMU was this year. This year, before coming in this year, I had so many self-doubts about myself and who I am as a person, and trying to figure everything out. But this year has made me realize what I'm capable of, and all the aspects to me that are amazing that I used to see as flaws that are actually not flaws. They're actually my greatest abilities, you know? But not only that, it's the relationships that I built this year. Some of these people I know I'm going to be calling 5 years from now and like, hey girl, how you doing? You remember that time we did that and we were really sad about it, but now it's something to laugh about? I don't know. Yeah, it's been a hard year with a lot of setbacks, but it's also been a lot of setbacks with a lot of joy. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't take that over anything. I would take that over anything. it's just, I've never been able to cry and people hold me the way they do. I've never been able to just text a friend group and be like, y'all, and they'd be like, what's up? Who we need to fight? I never had friends that had my back the way we do. Like, even like the way in which we are very protective over Pride Visibility and Pride Project. Like, we will fight anybody that tries to discredit us or, and it's just nice. Like, that means a lot. Like, I never realized the beauty of friendship until this year. And even within Senate and just everywhere, I've experienced so much this year. I've been through so much this year, but it's all things that I'm never going to forget, and it's going to be the best year because this is a year where I really found who I am. It's like, I don't know how to like word this, but it's like, I can do a memoir about this, this whole year.
Yeah.
Yeah, that answers your question.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
And so, my final question is there anything that that I didn't ask you about that you would like to talk about?
Has there? Yeah. Ask me about Senate.
About Senate?
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell me about your experience in the Student Senate.
The Student Senate. Okay. I came into Student Senate so optimistic. And generally wanting to do the good, for the queer community. But being in Senate this past year has crushed me. It's been one of the most daunting places I've ever been in. It's like, it's very performative, people putting policy, and the policy is great, but sometimes people use the policy piece as a personal gain to get more power, and it makes you think, are you really genuinely caring for the community or just genuinely caring for yourself? I've seen a lot this year in Senate that has kind of scared me, but I'm like, I know people always talked about it, but it's different when you actually, experience it for yourself. And, being a person of color in Senate that are actually trying to do good for the, of the university, you can't because of the systems that are in place. There's a lot of racism, a lot of transphobia that went down this year, and Senate picking and choosing what things they want to address. And even this past week with, one of the Black students getting attacked, by some of the Senate members, but, a white person cries, and it's like, are you okay because the white person was afraid of getting attacked because they didn't want to do some interview, but it's the Black person that actually got attacked for trying to put the interview together. But y'all not saying anything about that. And I don't know, it's just, and even with what I've done for the community, there's a lot of folks that try to tell me that I'm not being a good Senate person because that's not my job. But my job is to make an impact. And that's exactly what I did this year. But it's not in the impact as in what they wanted, they always talk about diversity and what could we do better, and we're literally telling you what you could do better, but it's a lot of just, checking a box instead of actually wanting to do better, because what we want, you're like, but what is, like, I don't know, it's just, yeah, Senate has been a great experience this year.
Yeah.
So
if you could, tell the Student Senate,
yeah,
what they could do to make diversity more than a checkbox.
Yeah, more than a checkbox.
What would you have them do?
I would have them, I would definitely change the way on which, internally how Senate goes, because a person like me, I don't know Robert's rule. I don't know how to write legislation, right? I'm coming in as a first year, and as somebody that's never really been in this type of, setting. And so I would definitely say if, doing more workshops. And if you're not going to do workshops, then just kind of taking that out. Because it's like, if you don't know those rules, if you don't know those systems, then you can't engage in the conversation. And a lot of people use that against you. And it's like, that's not fair, because there's the ability to access. that a lot of students of color, face, especially when they're like their first gen or something like that. And if you're not making it inclusive for everybody, then it's already just not a good place for it anyways. And I would do a lot more diversity training and whatever they're doing, whatever it goes down, making sure that, we are really listening to the communities. Because there are times where we tell Senate, this is what we want. But it's like they're not going to do it. And I think a good instance was like they were doing a lot of roundtables with with organizations of color to ask them like, how could we do better, right? What could we do better? And each meeting they said, what could we do better? And what they could do better. But it's like, no, we can't do that because this is why. But you literally just asked us why. But now you're telling us you can't do it because this is why. And so there's that. But then also there's just, you're always fighting with the frat, for the frat and sororities, the Penahanic and IFSC, right? And to know that a lot of these students, they try to play like they don't know what white privilege is, but they know exactly what it is. And a good scenario was one of the students said that he didn't want to go for secretary because there was a white woman running and a black woman running. He said that he didn't want to run because he didn't want to split the white vote. And what also was said was the same guy said that he wanted to go for parliamentarian. Another person was running. Another person of color was running. He said he's not afraid of losing that seat because he has the votes of the white people. And it's the same guy that was in my face telling me that he loves diversity. He wants diversity, helping me, giving me assistance on how to better go about this. But behind the scenes, but behind the door, you're saying all this, And that's a scary sight to see. That I don't know if there is any type of diversity training that you could have to, fix, a problem like that. But I don't know, when you have a president, and you never know who the president is going to be. We had an decent president that did try to help, with the problems and interpersonal things of Senate. But there was only so much that he could do because of all the things that were going on. But I don't know. I don't know how you would fix that. But I think it goes down to the who's running it, and how intentional are they about, the diversity aspect. You just don't never know who's going to be exec, and I don't think it's never not going to be a white exec team because of who we're facing, the minority versus the sorority and fraternity life. And so, yeah, there's that.
Yeah, wonderful. So we actually have time for a few more questions.
We do?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I don't think that clock is right. So are you hopeful for the future?
For the future, I would. If you asked me that before Senate, I would have said yeah. I don't know. I think all I need is to be affirmed by some books like Audre Lorde, probably Angela Davis, because I know what I'm experiencing. They've already probably wrote about it, and I just need to read more. But right now, I'm scared. I'm always, like I said, I'm always going to have to carry these hats on me, but I'm also always going to have to end up, fighting with these systems that are in place. And it makes me afraid because even with my job, they have me doing research on how to combat microaggressions in the workplace. But first of all, why am I the black person doing this? Trying to tell other black folks on how to combat racism. Like, that the onus, we're not the problem. The onus shouldn't be on us. It's the systems. But you're telling me on how to better make the situation better when it's not my fault. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. It's scary. I don't think there's nothing you could. It's a complicated issue. Only because of the systems that we're fighting, and I don't know how. I don't know how that can be resolved. I mean, but it's always the oppressor trying to do the education, trying to do not the oppressor, I'm sorry, the person that's getting oppressed, that's doing the education, that's trying to fight this. But it gets exhausting, it gets daunting, it makes you burn out, but that's how the systems work, they want you to burn out. And so, I don't know, I don't know. I know I'm always going to have this in my heart to do a lot of advocating. Like I said, that's why I'm happy to be going to get pursue a master's degree in justice studies because it's going to help me hone on these skills. But also just read more. I know eventually at some point I'm gonna find it within me to find what I really want to make my niche, especially for if I'm going through the academia round. Mm-hmm. But am I hopeful? Yes. Do I think what I want is going to happen in my lifetime? No. But I think what I'm really just most hopeful for is the community base. I know if all things fail, I'm always going to have my community. Mm-hmm. At least I know that I can enjoy, life with them. So.
Yeah. And so, I guess my one final question is that if you could do things over again, would you still come to SMU?
Yes. I would not have seen myself anywhere else. And I literally tell myself this all the time. Like, imagine if I went anywhere else. I would not have had the same rights. Like, even the fact that I'm able to keep my scholarship and not play basketball anymore. Do that anywhere else, probably would not happen. But not only that, SMU is only one of the only human rights degrees in the South. Like, human rights is what even shaped me to do what I'm doing right now. And then the fact there were just so many opportunities for me to do the work that I'm doing, like, and not feel like I'm trying to redoing the wheel because, like I said, all these are just first, That meant a lot. Yeah. As much as I talk bad about SMU, SMU has been a great place for me because it's okay to have that love-hate relationship. Like, I love you, but there are some things that you need to improve on. I'm going to speak up because that's what, family does. But, yeah, I would not have seen myself anywhere else at all.